Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is a TV review. Today I'm going to be having a look at the penultimate episode of Being Human, the UK version at least anyway. So this is the second to last episode that will ever be on of Being Human, so it's with a heavy heart that I review this episode because I did enjoy it and I've really enjoyed this season so far. Now this review will have some spoilers. So the episode starts off with a flashback 15 years ago when we see Rook, who is the government official, who we've seen kind of being the head of the paranormal division in the UK government, rescuing a girl from a nest of vampires. Now this girl is going to play sort of a fairly important part of this episode. Flash forwards to the present day, and you have a girl on the run from a sort of an unknown person, basically, who kind of runs into the hotel. Now it's fairly obvious that this girl is going to be the one that was in the flashback, so I think maybe they could have done without the flashback, to be honest with you, at the beginning, because I don't. What happens next basically is she ends up sort of befriending Tom and Hal really, and she's kind of she's got a cut. She comes in the hotel. She's got a cut on her hand. She tells Tom that she's running from this guy for some such reason. And she was late for a job interview. So Tom quite fancies her. He basically puts a bandage on her hand and offers her a job. She meets Hal, he being a vampire who's sort of back on the blood because he's been supping on that canteen that Rook gave him in previous episodes. So he's kind of like a little bit sort of on edge because he's back on the blood and he can sense it obviously from her hand. But basically, Tom employs her. Now, my issue here is that I think maybe they couldn't have done, if they hadn't done the flashback, you probably would have, it wouldn't have been obvious what was going on. So you kind of, anyone with I think half a brain would guess this is going to be the same girl. So it's not just going to be some random event. Now it turns out that obviously she's in the employ of Rook, who basically, you don't find this out until quite late in the end of the episode. It actually tells you this, but she's basically been sent there to sort of seduce Tom and to basically get Hal to feed off her, to basically drive a wedge between the two of them. But she kind of is, she develops feelings for Tom, and he's obviously, developing feelings for her as well. There are some quite funny scenes in the beginning where he's sort of trying to suss her out, and he gets Alec to sort of try and help him out, and ends up trying to have a conversation with Hal and Alex about sex and stuff. So that's quite a funny episode. You've also got this episode. You've got Alex and Hal maybe rekindling their romance a little bit towards the beginning, but she doesn't know that he's back on the blood. So most of this episode is played like you don't know that this girl is basically working for Rook, and Rook, if you remember, has been sort of in cahoots with Captain Hatch, although I still don't know really how much he actually knows about who Captain Hatch is. He's a werewolf, in case you haven't been watching it. So it's quite dramatic, this episode. It gets it's very, very tense and particularly good TV, I have to say. So really the episode, where it's going is she's driving this wedge between Hal and Tom, and she ends up sort of getting influenced by Captain Hatch, who kind of wants to escalate things. She basically tells Tom that Hal has almost forced himself upon her and wanting to feed, and this is obviously causes Tom to almost to go off the rails and sort of confront Hal, who is obviously sort of going to deny it, because that's obviously not what happened. But he's kind of, because he's so trusting, he sort of really just goes with what she says. But then, as I say, Captain Hatch is kind of like whispered in her ear, and she ends up doing some damage later on, which I'll come on to. So basically, Alex finds out that Hal's back on the blood. He sort of catches her mid-act, and she's been the one this sort of season who's been the sort of the unpredictable one in Captain Hatch's plans. Whilst the other two guys have been fairly like pawns, really, been quite easily manipulated. So I think maybe she'll be the key to this series, to be quite honest. So she's kind of disgusted with Hal, and now she finds out he's back on the boat, kind of wants him to sort of go away and everything, and he's very sort of ashamed of himself and whatnot. So it turns out at the end of this episode, he basically comes to her for help, said, "Tie me up, I'm going to go cold turkey." So that's what she does. Now I said, Captain Hatch has been whispering sweet nothings into this Natasha's ear, and she basically comes round to the house where Hal is tied up. With a knife, she sort of cuts Hal loose and then slits her own throat, obviously under the influence of the devil. She dies, and you've got Hal sort of holding the bloody body, and then Alex and Tom come in, and of course they see what looks like that Hal's been feeding on her. Understandably, Tom and Hal have a big sort of fight, but Alex sort of splits them up, and they both of them sort of go their separate ways for inevitable conflict in the next episode. So then it's really sort of the three leads of this all have a kind of like an ending to this episode, which is all quite dramatic. So first of all, you have Tom, who is obviously now on the warpath. He's collecting all his weapons. He's making vials of werewolf blood, sharpening his stakes and whatnot, ready for next episodes. What happens next though is that now Natasha is dead, her ghost appears and actually is able to tell Alex the majority of what's happened. She doesn't know that Captain Hatch is the devil, but basically she's able to piece together that obviously she was told by Rook to sort of seduce Tom and to get Hal to feed, and that Captain Hatch had said something to her, but we still don't know exactly what it is. In the meantime, you've got quite a disturbing scene where her body's going, "He will rise," and Alex pieces together that obviously this is something to do with Captain Hatch. So she materialises into his room and starts having a go at him, and he initially sort of just ignores her, but she sort of turns around and starts having a look in his room, and he kind of like, because of this conflict of this the werewolf and the vampire, he's able to sort of garner all this power. And basically comes up and sort of grabs her and throws her into a mirror and admits he's a devil. So that was quite good. So she ends up being trapped in her coffin next to her rotting corpse. And then you've got Hal. It ends with Hal going into a crowded pub, and you don't see anything, but it looks like it's implied basically that he slaughtered the contents of this pub, and that's. I liked it all, apart from I maybe thought that was maybe a little bit of a big jump for him. Some people I would imagine would disagree with me about this one, but I don't know. He's just tried to sort of convince someone that he didn't kill a human, and then the next thing he's going to do is go and kill a bunch of humans. So I don't know if I really like that, but obviously this season he wants to go out of a big bang, so that's what's going to happen. So that's the only thing maybe I had a problem with this episode, was that sort of that decision to do that. Now I don't actually know 100% if he has killed those people, because you don't actually see it, so I could be wrong for next episode, but I think that's possibly what has happened. So that was obviously a decision to have this big dramatic end for him. But there you go. That's my only problem. But this is great. A great episode. Really, really dramatic. It had some funny moments. It had some fairly scary moments and some great drama, as I say. Now, my predictions for next episode, which is the season finale, if Hal has killed all these people, I think he will be killed himself. I think Tom will stake him. But they'll probably have a recompense beforehand, I would imagine. It'll be interesting to see. I'm very interested to see what's going to happen with Alex. She, to me, has been the one that has been the sort of the wild card of the three of them, whilst Tom and Hal have been fairly easily manipulated by Captain Hatch this sort of season. I'm quite excited to see what happens with the next episode, the final episode of Being Human Ever in the UK. So, what did you think of the episode? Did you have any problems with it? Did you enjoy it? I'll give this episode a 9 out of 10 personally. Got any predictions for next episode, the final? Let me know. Now, if you're a UK viewer and you love Being Human, there is an American version of this series that is coming out in the UK. If it's not out now, it's coming out very soon. It is a little bit different to the UK version, the US. So there are some differences. I've got a video on my channel which goes through some of the differences between the US version and the UK version. So check that video out, and you might decide you want to watch that one as well. So although Being Human UK is going to be finished, we can always watch that one as well. So leave me a comment. I look forward to seeing you next week with the final of Being Human. See you later.